Welcome back to The Boys in Motion, the podcast where we chase personal best, avoid personal injuries, and occasionally we succeed at both. I'm Andrew.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Bryan. And today, I'm in the hot seat.
Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're going to do an interview-style deep dive with Bryan and his current marathon training block as he targets that magical milestone that many runners chase, sub 3-hour marathon. It's a number that gets thrown around quite a bit in the running world, and for many, it's the ultimate test of grit, consistency, and just that big pie-in-the-sky goal that they all want to hit.
Oh, yeah. And Bryan's had enough to bounce back more than once this year in this build. We're talking about soleus strain, dental surgery, and enough weddings to fund a full Ironman season, for God's sake.
It's true. I have the feeling that if wedding cakes were a recovery food, well, I'd be an elite right now. I'm excited to dive in.
So whether you're chasing 3 hours, 4, or 5, this episode is for anyone who's aiming for a big running goal. So let's break it all down. The workouts, the time trial we just did this past weekend, and all the mental grind that was required to get through this block. And let's see what it really takes to toe the line and have a shot at that sub 3.
Yeah, so I guess let's start with the first question. And I know one out of the three of us is already in this club. Why does sub 3 matter? That magical, mystic 2:59:59.
Yeah, it's quite the club to be in that sub 3. And I know for me, at the beginning, this has changed since I've ran my sub 3. But running a sub 3 for males in our age group is what gives you a shot at running the Boston Marathon. So I think that being one of the most historic and competitive marathons, especially in the World Marathon Majors, it's that big goal of trying to get a chance into running it. And just a few other stats around marathons specifically. So there's around less than 4% of marathon finishers that will actually hit and run under 3 hours, where the average finishing time across men and women worldwide is about 4 hours and 30 minutes. So that's an hour and a half under the average to get that sub 3 marathon.
Yeah, I mean, those paces are blistering fast to begin with. I mean, I've been in that 3.5 hour range for, let's say, a better part of 3 years now. So that sub 3 is nothing to scoff at. And I mean, it's wild to see you could, hold those speedy paces that sometimes you just wish you could hold on a track.
So Bryan, I think it is time that we spin it to you and we talk a little bit about your training block so far. So give us a quick preview of maybe the training plan you're following and what you've done up until now to try to set you up to run that sub 3 at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
Yeah, and maybe before I dive into exactly how I'm setting myself up for success, maybe the why is a good point to start for myself personally. And I think I see this sub 3, like do I have the goal of doing Boston one day? It would be cool, but it's not actually something I'm actively chasing. Like I don't have that in the back of my mind of like, this is a stepping stone towards that. This is really to myself, proving myself that I am, like I've become a distance runner. Having done my first marathon in just under 3:15, I feel like this is a substantial enough amount of time to cut off of my initial marathon where I can feel accomplished in the progress that I've made at that distance. And I think it's also that sort of universal badge in the amateur world of, you've accomplished a time that actually takes a significant amount of work to get to. And whether it happens this block or the next block, it is something that I'd like to stamp myself with. In terms of what I've done so far, I mean, the training block that I'm following that I began sort of in June was the Fitzinger 18-week plan, and it's the 55-mile max plan. 55 miles equates to something around 86 kilometers. So the biggest week will be that. Now, something that I'd love to dive into, and you guys can ask some pointed questions about this, is how I feel that plan is going as I try and struggle to balance that with cycling as well, because I have that goal of continuing to be able to push the pace on the bike, which definitely is suboptimal rather than just focusing on running. But overall, the training block's been pretty good. As Tyler mentioned in the intro, there's been a few setbacks. I had oral surgery for that put me out for about a week, a small soleus kind of strain, which put me out for another kind of 10 days or so. But outside of that, like I feel like that's fairly regular in a training block. You're going to have some stuff that pops up. I'm now hitting the wedding season in the next, like, from the day we're recording this, in the next 10 days, I basically have three weddings. So that's a lot, and there's travel in there. So it's a lot to stay on top of. But overall, I feel like I'm hitting the majority of my workouts, but not perfect to a T.
What the hell? I thought my wedding season was a lot. You're hitting the same amount in 1 month. That's wild. I guess, yeah, we're going to have to deep dive into that as well.
Yeah, I think before we dive into any other specific workouts, we did do a time trial this past weekend for kind of one of those key sessions. And I think maybe if we start with that and dive into that session a little bit. So how did that go for you, and what was your result, and kind of what were you trying to get out of that half marathon time trial?
Yeah, so with any time trial, right, it's about benchmarking yourself and your performance, seeing where you are. It's really like dusting off your racing legs. And so this half time trial was a big goal of mine during this block. I was hoping to be able to set a pace that was equivalent to a 3-hour marathon, essentially. So a 3-hour marathon, it's 42K in 3 hours. That works out to be 4 minutes and 16 seconds per kilometer for the marathon distance. We use v.o2.com to kind of look at these equivalencies. So the equivalent time for a half marathon is a 1:26:18. So at the back of my mind, that was the overall goal, was to try to come as close to that 1:26:18, and that's a 4:05 pace. And you'll see when we go through the paces of my half, the first half of the half, the quarter marathon, was right on pace. I was doing really, really well, and then I sort of blew up in the end. So this half TT that we did, conditions were really great, couldn't complain there. I ended up running a 1:27:55 was the result. Now the implication of that is that converts to a marathon time of 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 25 seconds. So obviously a little bit behind where I wanted to be. That 1:27:55 was about 4 minutes and 10 seconds per kilometer, so about 5 seconds a K too slow versus where I wanted to be. Now this is on tired legs, certainly deep into a block, but honestly, relative to last training block for the Ottawa Marathon, where I ran pretty much 90 minutes flat, that converted to basically a 3:07, 3:08 marathon. And I ended up, going all out just to get that 3:15. So I think I'm a little bit in the danger zone for the sub 3 on this block, but we shall see. We shall see how the next month and a half goes.
Nice. And you mentioned, just to dive into this specific effort just a little bit more and kind of see what you maybe got out of it. Yeah, looking at those splits kind of almost right until half, you were very close within that ballpark. Kind of what was it? Was it a certain feeling? Was it nutrition? Was there any kind of things you think were lacking that made you have to slow down?
Sometimes you give the legs a call and they just stop answering. And I felt the cadence was just really hard to maintain. And you actually see it in my heart rate. Like my heart rate drops, like the overall effort dropped and then came back at the end. So I think I really struggled in the kind of kilometer 13 or 14. Once I took that second gel at kilometer 14 to about kilometer 20, I was really on the struggle bus, just not too much in pain, but just the legs would not turn over more than they were. And I was really trying to juice it. But honestly, mentally having to pace myself at that effort. It was the fastest I'd ever run for that long, really. I think I did PR my 10K, my 15K, my 10 mile, and my half marathon, even with these. But PRing your like 10K in your half time trial is sometimes a danger sign as well. It just means like I haven't tested myself against those paces. And even like finishing that run, the thing that hurt the most was my shoulder because I'm just not used to throwing my body at that kind of pace for that kind of time yet. It'll come.
I mean, yeah, it's still obviously a crazy effort, but yeah, like you said, you dropped your heart rate a couple beats, and then that, I guess, that effort came with it, right? So I just wonder, do you think it was more leading up to it, and maybe walk us through the week leading up? Obviously, you're on tired legs and recovering slightly from that injury, that tweak we could call it. But like, is it tired legs? You think with a taper, maybe you could get some freshness back and get some speed into you?
For sure. I 100% like this comes at the point in the block when you are super tired. That's the point of this, is to run that half. I think it's a 15 to half TT that is prescribed. And it's meant to be after the previous weekend doing 32K and then a few long runs, VO2 max work. And I did juice my runs in the week leading up. Like I was running like basically my previous marathon pace for 20K runs midweek. And that in hindsight was probably not the best move because I was hurting even like Thursday and Friday leading into the Saturday run. But overall, like that's what the training block's built to do, is make sure that you're already tired going into this TT. I took 1 day of rest before, and that's frankly not enough to get the top, like peak performance, but it definitely doesn't account for, what was it, like a minute 50 that I should have been faster.
Now, looking forward from this kind of big effort, is there any tweaks in any of your big sessions that you'll be making from paces? Will you maybe be doing any other sessions to test that fitness, any other time trials?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the equivalencies for the 3 hour marathon, and one that sticks out to me is the 10K. Also, the 15K is actually really interesting. The 15K, it's right on an hour. If you can basically run a 1 hour 15K, it translates to a 3 hour marathon. But the 10K is maybe a little bit more of a recognized distance. It's also something I've never like full out raced. And it would give me a sub 40 10K if I went out and ran it and succeeded. So I'm interested in doing a 10K, also trying out the Vaporfly race shoes. So that, who knows, could give me a little bit of a boost as well. So that's my goal, is sort of 3 weeks out from race day, trying the 10K and just blasting out as fast as I can. If you're around, Andrew, could use a pace bunny. If not, I'll need somebody on the bike.
Love it. Depends when it is. Would be happy to do it as long as I am not.
Oh, you're definitely gone. Might need to FaceTime
you
through the whole thing. Just get the tips.
I love it. Yeah. Maybe just do it the same day I'm doing the Berlin Marathon, and we'll just be on FaceTime while we're both running real quick.
I love it. Actually, Tyler, what we could do is you could run your 5K PR after I blast out a sub 25K rate before, and then you join me for the second half and just try to push me to the finish line.
So then we're both dying at the finish.
That's
I
what
like
I
that.
want. That's the only way to race.
That's the only way to pace as well, is to the limit, and hopefully you can hang on.
That's a very good idea, Tyler. I think you should take him up on that.
You guys just want me.
20.
You guys just want me in the sub 20 club, eh? I kind of like being over 20.
Very well. Sub 3 club is also exclusive to Andrew, based on this last run. So in terms of tweaking my training, the one thing that I've realized, so there's these equivalencies of like the sub 40 or like sub 39 10K 126 half, and I watched a video on like breaking the 3 hour kind of marathon barrier, and a lot was emphasized on those like key sessions of juicing the long run, juicing the marathon pace work, and then also really developing the ability to go deep during those threshold, like key LT2 workouts. I will say that has not been super successful during this block, partially the heat, also with the amount of cycling I'm doing, right? I'm spending just as much time right now running as I am biking, or maybe a little bit less biking, but at the beginning of the block, I was cycling more than I was running. And what that means is I really am in a state of like fairly overtrainedness relative to I think most people who would be doing the same plan. And that's probably not optimal. Were I to do another sub 3 attempt, if that's necessary, I think I will cut out at least one of the rides every week, maybe two, and just focus on running so that I'm fully recovered going into those key sessions. Because what I'm finding is during those key sessions, during this half, it's not the aerobic system so much that I felt I was struggling with. It was really just the ability to keep my legs turning over for that long at that pace. And I think being spot on during those key workouts every week consistently would have given me a little bit more of an edge in this time trial.
And I think more value too per workout. And
Totally.
And of course the Strava investigators are out there. And I mean, you're not pushing small numbers on the bike either. It's not like you're going on leisurely rides. Like I've been riding my bike throughout the winter and leading up to a spring marathon. I barely do riding workouts. So I see you're smashing KOMs out there and absolutely destroying people on the bikes on the Tune-Up Tuesdays. So yeah, you're basically hitting both thresholds, even sometimes twice a day, right? So that'll take a toll.
Yeah. Andrew, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about this. Like, what do you think about this dual sport training block that I've embarked on? And how do you think that kind of meshes or competes with my goals?
And you're talking to the one-trick pony himself.
This is the thing. I get flack on being the one-trick pony, but I'm the one-trick pony during season for a very specific reason. And that is doing multiple sports is very good for the aerobic base. Don't get me wrong, that is very true. But the pounding of the legs and the leg turnover is so specific, and that you're only going to get quick by doing that specific motion. And me personally, doing too much else aerobic stuff prevents me from doing that work and hitting those workouts. So yeah, I think is like, if you really have aggressive running goals, you really need to focus on the running. For me personally, I find I really struggle if I try to do too much else. I've done that in blocks where I do a lot of bouldering, and I've really struggled with workouts in those blocks because of that. Not quite the same as cycling, but I had the same effects where I was never hitting my workouts. When I'm just doubling down on running, I'm able to hit those workouts a lot better.
Yeah, so this might just be that aerobic base kind of block. And were I to do another marathon block, I would maybe do something a bit shorter, but also a bit spikier. Something that like allows me to still have that like base of aerobic throughout the year, but then really have some deep dedication to turning over the legs, similar to what I did to break 20 in the 5K, which was like basically all the key work was dedicated to turnover, to making sure that I was fast, high VO2 max, those key thresholds that brought me really close to that 5K, and just focusing the marathon around a plan like that. But to say that it's totally given up on that sub 3 goal would be a lie, because I want to test this 10K after a few weeks of kind of, drinking at weddings and dancing the night away.
You need that salt in you, baby. Get that salt in. The salt man's coming for you. I think also, it's of course not out of reach. You're let's call it minutes, seconds off of this goal sub 3 time. But I mean, you could get a record for closest to sub 3, if not sub 3, with the highest FTP.
That's true. And one thing that I do see is like, of course, triathletes at the top of the game, like they're great at everything. Pushing them aside, like cyclists that come over who are like pure cyclists that start to run really do have this long adoption phase where they're like, they have this super strong aerobic base, but they don't have the leg strength. They don't have the turnover. They don't have the running fitness to do super well. And so you won't see somebody coming off the Tour de France able to run like a 2:30, despite the fact that their aerobic base would probably put them at like the same as a Kipchoge type. It's just so different, right? It's like trying to put Kipchoge on a bike. He's not going to be, drafting in the peloton from day
He
one.
needs the training wheels.
So I think this like dual goal is the biggest setback that I've had. I don't actually think that it's been these like strains, wisdom tooth, that sort of thing. I think it's just the overload of strain and just overtraining to a certain extent. It's not so much overtraining that is like chronically bad for my fitness gains, but it's overtraining in that like I have a lot of range but not a lot of focus on running. Not enough focus to really be pushing the sub 3 pace at this point in the block.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing I want to get into, and we've chatted about this on previous episodes and even with the time trial being maybe not a complete success in your books, like you didn't hit that A goal of certain sessions. I would love to know kind of some of those mental strategies you're using or kind of where the mental's going during those failed workouts and kind of how you're able to kind of, make lemonade out of lemons after a session like that, where maybe it seems like you're slightly off your target.
Yeah. Well, it's the fact that my friggin' cycling FTP is so high. So quite frankly, the run, it's good. I've made a ton of fitness gains. I know that I've done that. Like the last year, it was a great half marathon, perfect conditions in Kingston. I ended up like 129.50. This year, and I had the perfect pacing group. It was phenomenal. This year, going out myself on far more tired legs, like I took a few days off going into that last half. This one, basically no days off, stuck it really, really well, and I was having to pace myself, which is always tougher mentally. So I think that's one thing that I'm walking away with, is it wasn't a total fail. Like I've built a ton of fitness and I'm knocking on the door. I'm fairly close. In terms of from the day to day, I just love training. Like my motivation is being able to leave the door and push myself every day, which does have its drawbacks, and we're seeing that play out in real time right now from like not being able to hit every single workout, because I love hitting. Like I can't hit every single workout because I'm hitting every single session and just blasting. And that's fine, but if I really want to focus on breaking sub 3, if it doesn't happen this block, I've learned that as a takeaway for the next one for sure.
And I mean, we got to take it back for a second here. We're talking about failed workouts and failed sessions at a 127.50 half marathon. You know what I mean? Like it's quite a privilege to be chatting about this, right? And being in let's call it peak physical shape and trying to crush these workouts, which is amazing. We always talk about this, right? When we go on rides, what a better feeling. It's just, you can't beat it. But I mean, it's such a privilege to be, let's call it, complaining about not hitting that, 126 instead of 127. It's kind of amazing.
You're right on. And quite frankly, like looking at the paces that I was doing in my threshold workouts, especially early in the block before the fatigue had set in, I was pretty bang on. Like I felt like I was doing all right at that. Looking at some of my marathon pace stuff, it's obviously lacked a little bit. But of course, we've talked about this, like set your expectations from your last marathon and use the numbers off there. My previous marathon pace was 4:37. And even at the time, I thought like that was way beyond my A goal. So it's all about just managing expectations and being realistic. Like I've set this big goal, but I'm not beyond the fact that like sometimes it's too big, and I'm very happy to just go out and PR would still be fantastic. It would mean I had a successful day in Toronto. So I think overall the motivation is there to break 3, but the real motivation is the privilege, like you say, Ty, the priv, to go out and enjoy the speed that I've built.
Yeah, very nice. I know you are a big data man. You love reading into the data. I would love to know what kind of things, either on a daily or weekly basis, as far as the data on the screen from managing your marathon training, your biking, kind of what you're looking at to try to see if you're on track for this big goal of sub 3.
That's a very good question. So specifically sub 3, it's been those marathon pace workouts and those threshold workouts. I can perform fairly well. Like the VDOT running calculator, again, gonna shout it out. When you plug in your goals, it will actually give you a number of different kind of data points for your training as well. So like it'll give you easy pace, what your marathon pace is, what your threshold pace, what your interval pace, repetition. I'm fairly strong at hitting those shorter distance and even the easy pace for the work that I do. Where I'm lacking is a little bit on that marathon pace over extended distances. That's been the hardest data point to actually hit. In terms of what I'm doing on the day to day, one thing that I'm realizing is in threshold pieces and marathon pieces, I have this declining rate of cadence. And this is, I think, one of the weakest points is I see this cadence decay in those sessions, meaning that it's harder and harder for me to turn those feet over. It actually wasn't too bad in the half time trial because I'm now cognizant of this, but it's been a problem in past sessions. In addition to that, heart rate on the day to day, making sure that like when it's supposed to be a zone 2, when it's supposed to be recovery, I'm actually doing that. It's sometimes hard to stick to that plan, but it's definitely something that I'm aiming for. Outside of that, the other big thing has been sleep and just making sure I'm recovering as much. I love the new Coros. Glad I updated and upgraded from the Apple Watch because the Apple Watch was charging every night. This watch, I get to actually see the recovery data, and that's really motivating to see those numbers in terms of how much sleep and the quality of sleep continuing to climb. The last piece of data is the nutrition stuff. So I don't track super diligently, but I do track every once in a while. I certainly track during carb loads, but the one thing that I know is protein's always a struggle. So just trying to eat as much protein. And when I do like that odd day of tracking, I find I'm way under that protein goal. And that always kind of kicks my ass into gear to start eating more protein related foods anyways.
Yeah, I know that's I've mentioned that's one that I struggle with as well. What are kind of your main tips or kind of things that you reach to when you know you're behind to kind of try to up that protein in a day?
Yeah, so I think the number one is just like a daily protein shake. It might not be like the healthiest way to get protein. It's not like whole food. But to me, it doesn't matter. I just need that daily habit of having a protein shake. Generally, it's after activity. But even if I haven't done anything, I'll still have one because it's hard to get that protein in. And dairy is another really good way. Luckily, not lactose intolerant. Knock on wood, not yet. Tyler, I see you shaking your head.
Frig.
But the Greek yogurt and cottage cheese is a real hack. Just like as much as you can fit in a bowl and comfortably put down, it's always going to be net beneficial. And then eggs. Love the eggs. We're an egg house. So had my 3 eggs this morning, get that protein in kind of as many times during the day as possible, hitting that like 20 to 25 grams of protein.
You're an egghead, basically. Yeah, I mean, that's a big struggle of mine as well. And I think that those are those, like, you know, we've talked about it in the past. Those are those things you could do outside of that training plan that, you know, some people don't talk about, most people don't talk about, is hitting not only your key sessions, but those key, let's call it recovery, sleep, and nutrition goals as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the other piece of data that I didn't really mention is my 100 recovery and strength and conditioning routines throughout the year. I think I'm at 68. And as of tonight,
Yes.
after recording, while the podcast is downloading, I will be doing number 69. So I've set the goal of 100 throughout the year, and I'm pretty on pace for that. And I think that's actually been a huge help. If you're not doing some sort of cross training, whether it's like mobility, stretching, yoga, even weights, all of that will definitely be net beneficial. And it doesn't like put a ton of strain on your cardiovascular system, but it definitely helps with the running and the cycling.
Love it. Yeah, that's definitely one of the main things to keep you healthy through it and kind of managing, maybe not being completely injury free, but kind of trying to mitigate those and bounce back pretty quickly. The other thing you mentioned was that upgrade to the Coros Pace 3, something we ragged on you for a while of being with the Apple Watch gang. But I would love to know some of your other kind of big gear pickups for this block? Any ones that you really like and want to give a kind of a shout out to, or any that were just flops and that you wish you wouldn't have gotten and you're dropping from the rotation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, a few of the things that I've tried. So, the first would be some new shoes. I've definitely upgraded my inventory. Let me just see here. So, I've got another pair of kind of recovery runners, I would say. They're the Bondies from Hoka. They're a really, really cushiony shoe, very big. I call them the Bondi Clowns because I bought them like a half size bigger than I usually buy my Hokas. And they've been really, really good for those easy sessions. And then I picked up two pair of Sauconys. One, the Kinvara Pros, which have been a godsend on those VO2 max and threshold workouts. Kind of anytime it's one of those two sessions, those are what I'm putting on. They've got a carbon plate, but it's not the stiffest, and it's really built for those speed sessions, but not a race shoe. And that's been really good at kind of limiting the, we'll call it like degradation of your joints and muscles in the lower legs during those tough poundy sessions. And then the others are the Triumphs. I think they're the Triumph 22s by Saucony. They're a really cushiony shoe. They're fairly comfortable. They might be like too soft through the midsole and that sort of thing for some people, kind of for me, but they're a really comfortable shoe and fit me well and haven't given me any problems. Those are two, or like, I guess, a few shoes that are really good. I'm very excited to try the Nike Vaporfly. What are they? The Next Percent 2s or 3s?
The
threes. They're just very sexy, feel very fast, very narrow as well.
Oh, they're guaranteed a PR when you buy them. So
Yeah. And then shout out to the gels. Shout out to all the carbs. So Cis gels have been powering me through like my purchased gels. I do have a few leftover Mortons, probably expired, that I'll be cruising through on race day, so that'll be perfect. And what else? Oh, the Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid has been a huge help. I really enjoy mixing the Kool-Aid with the pool water mix, getting those electrolytes in. And then finally, having a soft flask has also been really nice for those really long sessions. Being able to just have a water bottle on kind of the porch step, dump that water bottle in with my carb mix and keep running. For those like 30K pluses, it's really tough to do mentally, having to loop back every 5K. So this one soft flask allows me to kind of double that distance at least. So those are all kind of the successful things. In terms of unsuccessful things, it's just been a few shirts with the chafing. But that's not new territory for us, Tyler. Am I right?
Oh no, I got some tips and tricks. We could do a whole episode on that if you want.
Yeah. So no, overall everything there is good. And I don't think I've bought anything experimental that has backfired throughout this block yet.
The big question there is yet.
Exactly. Yeah. These Vaporflies are, itching at me.
It's funny because Tyler, you were laughing, but I think you think chafing is a feature, not a bug, because you keep wearing that same shirt. That has caused you severe issues in the past, so might be a feature.
That is true. It is a feature, and I mean the shirt isn't. It's a white shirt, and it's not even stained red yet, so I haven't bled in it enough, I guess.
What's nuts is I think you feel like if you've bled through your shirt, then it was a better run than had you not. It's just like a badge of honor.
It's a token, exactly. It means I've actually worked for that run. If the nips don't hurt, you got to keep going.
Before we get too belligerent and jump right into chat time, I do want to try to kind of wrap this up in some nice advice for our listeners that are chasing that sub 3 or sub whatever their goal is. And I would love to know, Bryan, if there's anything that you wish you knew, if you could bring yourself back to before this block, maybe even before that Ottawa Marathon block, which kind of started this journey. What is that thing you wish you would have known before getting into it?
I think there's two things about training for a marathon that are really important. One is having a training plan that you stick to as best as possible with the mindset that it's okay for that to be an imperfect block, but to stick to that as best as possible. There's always going to be things that come up in the way of hitting every single run. It's nearly impossible to do. You need to be very strict, like monk-like, to actually be able to have the space to do every run. But I often have seen with people who are getting into maybe their first or second block that they'll get have a few successful weeks and then totally shut it down. And you're just missing so many sessions and then they'll try to jump back into the volume that they're supposed to be at now, and then maybe risk injury because their body hasn't had that sort of continuous overload, and then they just shock that system. So it's about having that plan, sticking to it as best as you can, understanding that it's not going to go perfectly, but the marathon, like that one day of running, is not the hard part about the marathon. It's the months of dedicated training that you need to do to make that day successful for you. And that's the hard part, is sticking with it week through week. It's really easy to be a dedicated runner for a month. It's really, really hard once you get to that third month, because the mileage starts taking over. And if you haven't built your life around that block to a certain extent, it's easy for that to slip away. And the moment you let it go, sometimes it's really, really hard to get back on the train.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I think the part about being realistic at the beginning is so important. Like you said, if you fall off and then you started thinking you could do 70 kilometers per week, you fall off and then end up averaging 40 kilometers a week, did 70, but then zero a couple weeks. Try to find what is realistic and what you'll actually realistically be able to do with all your other life events. Have one of those big business meetings with all your prior commitments and make sure that what you're about to set out to do is realistic and within range. Although chasing huge goals is always a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was, so we're talking about sub 3 for me specifically, and I set those benchmarks of like the 39-minute 10K, the 1 hour 15K, and what was it, 1:26:15 or so half marathon. But that's just like for the 3-hour marathon. I just want to run through, especially for you, if you're trying to break the 4:30, the 4, the 3:30 marathon, what those equivalencies are. So I'm going to rhyme those off. And of course, if you need something really personalized to you, check out the VDOT calculator. It's V and then dot, actually spelled like DOT, O, then the number 2.com. So for a 4:30 marathon, your half should be 2:11 and your 10K should be 59 minutes. And that's to be able to, so basically just sub 6 pace for a 10K, and that 4:30 marathon is sort of like within reach. For a 4-hour marathon, that's 5 minutes and 41 seconds per kilometer pace. Your half marathon should be a 1:56, and that 10K should be a 52:24. So I know a lot of people see that 4-minute marathon, 4-hour marathon, very similar to the 3-hour marathon. And then I think that 3:30, this is a range where a lot of listeners are sort of like juggling whether or not they can run that. I think the beauty of the 3:30 marathon is if you can be 3:30 on the dot, it means you've paced yourself at just under a 5-minute kilometer, because 3:30 is 4:59. And the benchmarks there are a half marathon in 1 hour and 41 minutes, and then a 10K at 45 minutes and 30 seconds, basically. So that just gives kind of the range of where you need to be to hit those big like half-hour increments. Now, I won't get into that, what it takes to break the 2 hour and 30-minute marathon. Andrew might have my neck if I start preaching those fast paces. But I think it's just a really good tool, and being able to benchmark yourself against this calculator is something that will give you confidence and also set realistic expectations. Because I've seen with like the Strava app with my Coros, it's not 100% the same as the VDOT calculator, whereas this has been a little bit more accurate to me in the past.
Yeah, those speedy paces are in the Andy Runnerman vault only. But yeah, I think I look at the VDOT calculator here and there coming close to a race, let's call it, but I try to go a lot by feel as well, running into the block. I think maybe a little bit more what do you call it? What do you call it? A little bit more vibe feels on your block. I think you could kind of get through those workouts knowing how you feel and how you should be feeling. Obviously, it's great to look at that VDOT calculator to hit those actual milestones that you just run off, Bryan. But I mean, I found myself at the beginning at least chasing some of those paces that were maybe out of reach at some point, and then you kind of we've talked about it mentally. You come down into that spiral, sometimes worse than when you came into it. And I think like coming into it and being stressed throughout your whole block as also defies the purpose, right, of doing what we're doing here. We're doing this to de-stress and to have fun. Obviously, challenges and setting ourselves these goals are something that we're, again, privileged to do. But I mean, if you're stressed over it and it's like, overtaking your whole life, and you come to the point where you're getting, anxious to be hitting these workouts, these paces, you should maybe step back and think about what is actually doable for yourself and go from there.
That is, I think, maybe the soundest advice we've ever given on the podcast. I totally agree. I think for myself personally, because we are talking about like this goal, is like very soon after that run, Andrew and I were talking about like, okay, how can I adjust off this new information? And I'm not anxious at all. If I was, that would be super detrimental to my performance. I think maybe I was a little anxious going into that half. But now that I've seen where the numbers fall out, I'm more just like, let's adjust. I'm super excited to go into this 10K and try to blast it. And that's like a very good mental frame to be in. But yeah, if like psychologically you're wearing yourself down with anxiety and stress about hitting paces, you're running for the wrong reason.
Yeah, for sure. Have you, speaking of paces, not for just for the paces, but have you put any thought into kind of a race strategy, or kind of wrapped your head around what you want to do for that? Or is it's still a little too early for that?
So it's still a little too early. I will say I'm now at a middle ground. My original plan was go out at 3 hour marathon pace. That's what is it, 416, 417, and hold it. That was my goal at the beginning of the block. That has now adjusted to being in the range of either that or starting out with the 305 pace bunny. I hear he's real sexy, and I just want to be running beside him the whole time.
That's real nice. It'll be real nice. It'll be a nice pack we got there at 305. And then randomly we'll just speed up to 3 hours and we'll try to bring all the 305s along.
That's it. But yeah, so realistically, the hope would be that I can hang on to you pacing the 305 group, and then around that 25, 30 kilometer mark, decide whether or not the kind of like goal is just to hang on and not fade, or whether I can like push it. But I think if I'm starting out with you and by kilometer 15 I'm still with you, I would be at the point where like I've accepted sub 3 isn't happening during the race, and I'm really there to PR and just optimize for what I can do on the day. Because going out at that sub 3 pace could be the most negative experience ever, because I could risk blowing up, and that's the last thing that I want to do. I want to make sure that it's still a very enjoyable day and I walk away feeling like I hit the goal that I set for myself that morning or in the weeks leading up, once I have like a full picture of where my fitness is at. Right now, I'm sort of in that frame of I'm really happy to run 305 and see if I can hang on.
I like that. That's a good approach. I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be hard to do on the day, and I'm glad you have that pretty sexy pace bunny with you, because I've ran it once, and I'm no pro, but it was very fast coming through that first 11 to 12K. And I actually wish I did slow down a little bit. I was feeling too good, and I was very fast through that first half.
Yeah, and it's the plight of the marathon. Like, I know you've never run a marathon where it hasn't been, positively split. Neither have I. And whether like that would be a super cool goal is like to go out with the 305 and hit the 305 and even, out sprint Andrew because he's got the contract. He's not allowed to go faster. That's a perfect position for me.
He's got the limiter.
Yeah.
I'll be cuffed. I'll try to spin the legs, and it'll just my nimbuses will slow me right down.
Turn around, give you the wag of the thumb, and just take off on you in that last 100 meters, and then I can finally say, beat Andrew at a marathon.
I kind of like that idea.
Crazy.
That's a great race plan.
But even that, so this is the last thing from my perspective that I did want to mention in the episode was last year, having done the half at 129.50 or whatever, the goal was, or like the equivalent pace was a 307, 308. I think I said that. I wasn't able to come close to that on race day. Like I was still like minutes back from that. So if that same kind of conversion is true for me at this next marathon, 305 might not even be in the cards. So we shall see.
That's what's beautiful about race day. That's what it never gets old.
Before we put a wrap on the episode, I do have a question that I've been chomping at the bit and kind of waiting, trying to be patient to ask you about. And that is, as Biker Boy Bryan, the biker of the group, the man that is, you love biking, you love focusing on biking, you love the technical aspect of it. I would love to know, and I've been at a marathon where I've asked you, when are we signing up for the next one? And you've point blank told me to my face, ooh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm doing another one. I would love to know what keeps bringing you back to training for these running events and putting aside a 100% focus on biking, or even a primary focus on biking, especially with this one being in that summer biking season.
Wow. What a question. It's a tough one to answer, I'll be honest. If I were a different man, I would call bananas and get a little bit of breathing time before answering this hot question. I must be honest. I do totally love running and setting the goal in running to actually go and compete at a marathon, at a half. I think it's a better experience in some ways than cycling racing might be. I think the race against the clock, the race against yourself, is one that gives me a lot of internal motivation and something that is maybe a little bit more exciting than going out and like racing a cycling race, because there's inherent risk to cycling. You're at the mercy of other people in the peloton. And quite frankly, like there's not a lot of options for cycling races locally to the same extent that like we can all go out and run, and it's more social. There's more people doing it, and it's just a little bit more accessible for our friend group as well. But I've been toying at the idea of maybe like the like duathlon, doing the bike run as a race. I think that would be really cool. But I do have the goal in the coming year to actually do some bike racing. But I think I in 2025, my goal was to run the marathon, and that's been the primary aim. So cycling racing has taken a backseat, and I've just fallen in love with the process of setting this goal and trying to achieve it. So running right now is a love of mine, and cycling has had to take the backseat.
I like it.
Yeah, very, very, very nice. I love to see it.
It's true.
Yeah,
Let's just say I have more shoes than I have bikes. So, well, that's a tough one. My bike, I don't even know. I still probably, my bike costs more than all my shoes. That's
probably.
It'd be close competition now, actually.
All-time shoes, maybe.
Yeah. Like if I look here, there's 10 pairs of shoes that I see. Each one's about $150. So it's getting close, anyways.
Right. Got to do the big math.
Got to get another bike.
But yeah, no. That N+1, baby, N+2. I mean, I think you described it perfectly, right? And me coming from doing multiple kinds of races, let's call it. I've never done a bike race, but there's just something different with just a pure running race, whether it's, just that pure adrenaline or just something so simple as literally running. Of course, you're running against yourself, and at the elites, you're actually running in a top field, and you're trying to get to that podium. But just something about running is just so simple, but yet so hard at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is that simplicity of you just going out and you're doing the distance and you're fighting yourself. Cycling is fun, but it's more of like a war against others rather than yourself, which is something I absolutely love and crave, but it's not something that I've structured my training for based on this year's goals, and I'm happy with that. But that will change. I think the dedication to time trial in the next year will certainly elevate my interest in getting back into the bike racing.
That's going to freak me right out. I can't wait for the winter season.
I already just go out on just an easy ride, and it's like 34K an hour now.
That's what I find when I see your rides. I look right away at the average power, average kilometers per hour, and heart rate. I'm like, this is wild. I love it.
It's just fun.
Before we wrap this one, is there anything, Bryan, you'd like to say, any words of wisdom for our listeners that are about to send it in some fall races to give them that extra push and motivation?
I think the only thing that I would want to say is enjoy the process, enjoy the privilege of what your body's allowing yourself to do. Don't stress out too much about the specific times. Especially if it's your first marathon, you can always get faster, but don't let that take away from the point of the endeavor that you've set yourself on and the goal that you've set of even just accomplishing, signing up and dedicating yourself to that training. Like, I think when I hear that somebody's done a marathon, I'm not ever impressed so much, except for you, Andrew, of course, about their finishing time. What I'm impressed about is they're the kind of person that actually goes out, sets a big goal like that, puts in the training to accomplish it, and follows through with it. That's what's impressive to me about the marathon. And so to anybody who's training for one, enjoy that, take that away as your grain of sand, and then get faster with it and dedicate yourself to like the tough training and all of that. There's tons of room for that in your life, but really, really enjoy that first block and any block that you're in.
Couldn't have said it any better.
Well, that's a wrap of this episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. Thank you, Bryan. Great interviewing you today and kind of flipping the tables and getting that nice deep dive on this awesome build, and for chasing those big fall goals. And I cannot wait to be behind you in a marathon.
Yeah, if all goes well.
Jeez.
We will see if all goes well.
I got chills at that statement. That's wild. I can't wait to see. And I mean, I think I'm going to come down for the day to witness this and witness the fitness. So we'll see. Everybody, if you're aiming for sub 3 or sub anything, just completing, we're right here with you. Join the Boys in Motion on Strava, tag us on Instagram, and let us know how your training's going or ask us any questions.
Exactly. Share this with your friend who's signed up for that marathon, or share it with your friend who might be interested in signing up for a marathon with you. Toronto Waterfront is coming fast. What's coming even faster is Tyler's Army Run half and Andrew's Berlin full. So good luck to both of you gentlemen on race day. And whether I run 2:59:59 or 3 hours, 0 minutes and 1 second, I know that this build has made me stronger. It's definitely made me more confident in my fitness, and it's been a pleasure to be able to do this training block and keep you guys up to date and the whole community up to date on how it's going.
And as always, we're just sharing from our own experiences. We are not medical pros, so talk to a coach or a doctor. We're just a couple boys who have either ran sub 3 or it's just around the corner.
Yeah, so I'll leave everybody with keep grinding, keep smiling, and remember, sub 3 might just be a number, but showing up is the real win.